Hey everyone, welcome to Ajiro Tech, and in this video we'll be looking at um, topical questions for revision for the 10 students who are preparing for their terminal term 1 examination, which is just in a few hours. Okay, so this was posted in the Google Classroom, and there's a need for us to actually look at these questions. I know most of you have gone through it. I know most of you have made your research. These things were taught in classes. You've gone through your notes, you've gone through your slides, you've made inquiries by yourself. But I felt that probably a video can be done for this, and where we can all look it together and we can watch and you can learn, see some of the mistakes you have made on your own and try to see how you can adjust them. Okay, so let's get right to it. Okay, so I have the first question. It said, question 1, autonomous vehicle autonomous vehicles are being tested on some of the world's roads. Okay, this vehicle can travel in convoys with each other vehicle following the one in front with a set distance between them. Okay, and I want to believe that you have seen something like that, how especially when the president or someone in high power is coming into a country, or more like an ambassador coming into another country, there is a convoy that follows them, and they're always in a straight line within some few distance between them. Okay, now the whole operation is computer controlled. Now if the vehicle in front slows down, then the following vehicle also slows down to maintain the distance between them. Okay, now a proximity sensor, which I've discussed in the other video, in I think part 1 or part 2 in the divisional video in preparation for your exam, so you might want to check that out. It's used to detect how close the vehicle is to the vehicle in front. Now the question is, describe how the processor, the microprocessor, would maintain the set distance between these vehicles. Okay, so what are the things we need to look at to ensure that the microprocessor is going to maintain a distance between the vehicles? The first thing we will talk about, describe, and I'm still going to refer you, I've said that in the video, but I'm still going to make emphasis on that. That describe talks about you state the point of a topic, not just a topic, you also give characteristics about, and also main features about certain things. Okay, so that gives you a guide. So the first thing is that the microprocessor is going to read the data. It's going to read the data, and the data from the proximity sensor is compared to the preset value that has been assigned. I want it to be 2 centimeters. I want it to be 3 centimeters, or whatever it is. And the preset value is set to show the minimum distance from the vehicle in front. And if the values are the same, nothing. What I mean is, if we have put it to 2 centimeters, now what the proximity sensor does is it detects the vehicle that is in front. So whenever it's 2 centimeters, nothing happens. But the next step is, if the values are different, the microprocessor will send a signal to the actuator, which is the output side, and it's going to read it. And the actuator is going to speed up or slow down. What that means is, if it's far away from the proximity, it's going to speed up to maintain that proximity. If it's slow, if it's too close, it's going to slow down so that there will not be a jam. So the actuator speeds up the vehicle, or slows down the vehicle, and applies the brake appropriately. And this whole process continues. It's a continuous process. When it's high, when it's far away from, when the front vehicle is far from the behind vehicle, the proximity sensor sends a signal to the actuator, and it tries to get close to maintain that distance. Okay, that's just the process it goes through. Question 2, describe Three benefits of the doctors using an expert system to help diagnose a patient illness. Now, this particular question have been covered in the IGCSE revisional question, I think in part 1 or part 2. So you might want to check that out. So there's no need of me having to discuss this, because that has only been discussed in the previous video. So you might want to actually check that out, okay? Or better still, I might put up a link in the description below, and then you can actually go direct to where the video is, okay? That is for students who are not our students, and also for our students, it's right there in the Google Classroom, okay? Now, question 3, define the following terms in expert system. We have discussed about the expert system in the previous video, so you might want to check that out in part 1 or part 2. So just go through it. Trust me, there are things you're going to see there that I really touched on, okay? So we have the knowledge base, the user interface, and the inference engine. So let's look at it. Don't forget, when you're answering IGCSE questions, it has to be on bullet points, okay? So the first one is, let's look at the knowledge base. Now, the knowledge base is a repository of facts. It talks about facts, gathering of facts, okay? These are facts that have been tested, have been proven to be true. So it gathers the facts. That is the knowledge base. It stores all the knowledge about an area of expertise obtained from different or from several expert resources, okay? The next point could be, it is basically a collection of objects and their attributes. What do I mean? Let's look at an object, a dog. What are the attributes? Let's look at the first attribute. The dog is a mammal, okay? It lives in land. It makes a bark sound. And of course, it walks in 4 legs. So this is a case study of what the objects and the attributes are. In the case of the user interface, this is the method by which the expert system interact with the user, okay? The second step would be, it allows interaction through dialog boxes, okay, command prompt, or input methods. Now, the question asks usually only have a yes or no, okay, answers, and are based on the responses to previous questions, okay? That's 3 points there, and that I've given. And for the A part, I've also given 3 points. So let's pay attention to that, okay? For the inference engine, I have 4 points, and the first one is, this is the main processing element of the expert system, okay? The second point is, the inference engine acts like a search engine, right? Examining the knowledge base for information that matches the query, okay? The third point is, it is responsible for gathering information from the user by asking series of questions, okay, and applying responses where necessary, okay? So each question is based off on the previous response, okay? And the final one is, the inference engine is a problem-solving part of the expert system, which makes use of the inference rule known as your rule base, okay? So that's just what it is. So it's important that you put them in points, okay? Question 4, list examples of biometrics. Now, in the case study of biometrics, in the case study of, okay, I think I've missed, did I get that? Okay, that's fine. Yeah. In the case study of biometrics, they're part of the recognition system that helps to recognize people before authenticating them to show if they are actually who they are. Okay, we have the logins and the likes of that, right? But now we have another form which is called biometrics, okay? So examples of those biometrics could be face recognitions, iris and retinal recognitions, could be fingers and thumb recognition, could be hand recognition, and it could be voice recognition, okay? Now, the fifth one compare and construct the use of solid state drives with the use of magnetic disk drives to store data. Now, I've talked about laptop and desktop in the case of the solid state and in the case of the hard disk drive. The magnetic disk drive simply means the hard disk drive because it makes use of magnet. Okay, so that's just what it is. So you might want to check the previous video, but I'm still going to lay emphasis on this, but you might still want to check it for added knowledge. Okay, all right. So in the case of, we'll look at compare and construct. I've explained what that means in the part 1 of this video. This is definitely going to be the part 3. Okay, I've explained what it is, so you might want to go through the previous video in part 1, part 2 to get a knowledge of that. Okay, so compare and construct. So let's look at construct. Now we see that the solid state drive is lighter in weight than the hard disk drive. Okay, it's lighter. So therefore, any other any device it finds itself becomes lighter. Okay, so the SSD is lighter in weight compared to the HDD. Okay, the speed of access in SSD is a lot quicker, and the speed of data transfer also is a lot quicker. And finally, every device the SSD falls under makes that device smaller because it is smaller, and the SSD uses less energy, so we have to take note of that. And of course, it has less chance of impact damage. Now, in the case of compare between the solid state and the magnetic disk drive, is they are both used to store data and they are used to boot the system. Okay, so let's take note about that. Question 6: differentiate between smishing, phishing, and pharming. I've talked about phishing in the previous video. You might want to check out, but for the sake of these 3 combined, I'm just going to point some things out. Okay, now for smishing, remember you have to put them in points, right? So for smishing is a short for SMS phishing, and SMS means short messaging service. Okay, it also, another point is it uses the SMS system of mobile phones to send out fake text messages. Okay, and another one that it contains URL or a telephone number embedded in the text message. Okay, for phishing, it is when attackers send a kind of malicious email designed to trick people into falling for their scam. Okay, and the intent is to get users to reveal financial informations, not just financial information, system credentials, or other sensitive data. Okay, for pharming, right, is when a malicious code is installed on your computer, right, misdirecting that user to fraudulent websites, okay, without their knowledge or consent. And of course, the aim is for users to impute their personal information and to cause harm to them, okay, or to defraud them, as the case may be. They are both used for fraudulent activities. You need to know that. Describe the differences between internet and intranet. Now, I have explained what the difference between the internet and the intranet in the first video, so you might want to check it out. And in the first video of the revision, you might want to check it out and get yourself acquainted with this. Like I said, I might have to drop the links between them, but still it's just in the first video, and of course you can have yourself a wrap with it. Okay, okay, a house contains a microprocessor controlled central heating system. Identify 2 input devices that will be used in the system. So what are the two input devices that will be used in this system? So let's look at it. We have the touch screen, we have the temperature sensor, we have the remote control. It's either a remote control or a smartphone or a tablet that's all acting as a remote control. Okay, and that is that. The B part talks about describe how a microprocessor would use the data from these devices to control the central heating system. So how would a microprocessor use the data from these devices that is being used to control? Now, how is it going to use that? When you use the remote control, the microprocessor reads or receives the data. The required temperature or preset value is keyed in using the device. What do I mean? There's a certain device, a preset value that is given. Okay, if it's lower, if it's higher, these are the preset values that is given. Okay, now the microprocessor will compare the data with the preset values that is embedded in that device. Now, if the temperature is greater than or equal to that preset value, then the signal is sent to the actuator to turn off the heater. It's just like when the room temperature is cold. When the room temperature is cold, there's a way that the AC, I'm using the AC as a literal example, turns off the AC. The AC is turned off, and when the system or when the house is warm again, the AC is turned on. Okay, that's what I mean by preset values. Now, if the temperature is lower than the preset values, then a signal is sent to the actuator to turn the heater on. And like I said, this process is a continuous process. Okay, now describe what is meant by the following types of working: compressed hours, flexible hours. Now, I have also discussed about this in the previous video, chapter 1 or part 1 or part 2 of this video, so you might want to check it out. Okay, the next one is describe the advantages and disadvantages for remote working for employees and employer. Questions like this, you have to look at the advantage for the employee, disadvantage of the employer, the advantage of the employee, disadvantage of the employee, advantage of the employer, disadvantage of the employer. Okay, now the advantage will be for the employee able to work with flexible hours. Like I said, I've talked about flexible hours in the previous video, so you might want to check it out to know what I'm talking about the flexible hours. Okay, spend more time with your family. That's a good point. That's another advantage of working remotely. Okay, when we talk about working remotely, we're talking about you being at home and you're working, and you're having access to your computers at work, or you're having access to the resources at work and you're working. Okay, during COVID, we saw a lot of that remote working. Now, it saves time and traveling expenses, especially when your work is in a different state or in a very long location. That is going to save you time of traffic. Whether you have a car, whether you're on transit, you're going to take a transit, an Uber or a taxi, it's going to save you time and traveling expenses, as the case may be, which is also a suitable advantage for that. A disadvantage for the employee will be they will feel isolated at home, because one of the beauty about working in an environment is working with people. And when you're at home, you're working, you're not really getting the vibe or the connection with people, so you're going to feel isolated. Okay, because there's that lack of interaction between co-workers. Okay, and in cases of promotion, you're sure that they're going to be overlooked because you want to promote people you can see. So in terms of promotion, they might not get it. Right? Less productive working at home, and they could be easily distracted. When you're working at home, there's TV on, there's other things on, you have to attend to family and the rest, you can be easily distracted, and that can be a disadvantage. Now, in the case for the advantage for the employer, right, they don't need to provide any form of desks or office spaces, right? Cases of stipends or allowances that might come in extra workings may not even be there. Okay, which is also an advantage for the employer, because they are working remotely and they feel that they can be called upon anytime. A disadvantage could be difficult to check up on the employee to keep track of their work progress. That is disadvantage because if you cannot see them, you cannot easily monitor them, right? You cannot even know if they are doing the work well or if they are doing the work effectively, okay? Or if it's them that's even doing it at all. Yeah. All right. Question 11. Describe the advantage and disadvantage for microprocessor controlled devices in the household. Now we have to look at the advantage and disadvantage of using this MCD, which is your microprocessor control devices in the home. Okay, and we have two types of this, two groups of this micro controlled devices. Okay, so it's important that we acquaint ourselves. I, on the other hand, did not talk about them in the first or second video, so I'm just quickly going to talk about them. Right now, we have two types. We have the labor-saving devices, which is group one. Talks about your washing machine, microwave oven, your cookers, automatic dishwashers, your fridge, your smart fridges, bread making machines, robotic vacuum cleaners, etc., etc. Other devices talks about alarm clocks, television set, central heating, like we've talked about, air conditioning system, home entertainment system, mobile phones, tablet, as the case may be. So in this case, they're talking about in the household. So that pretty much covers everything, both group one and group two. So for the advantages, people no longer have to do manual tasks at home. Everything is just with a click of a button. You have your remote, you can do, you just have to do, you just press whatever you need and it's done. Okay. Two, it gives people more time for leisure activities, talking about hobbies, shopping, and socializing. Why these devices are operational. It is possible to control these devices using your smartphones, especially your example, your oven, washing machine. You can use the smartphones to control them, right? Automatic burglar alarm gives a sense of security and well-being, as they always give a very sophisticated level of intruder warning. Okay, so when people come in or people are close within proximity range, it gives an alert that somebody is close. It tries to see who it is, right? If your system is embedded to that feature, or it gives you an alert that somebody is coming in, an intruder, and you have the choice to ignore or create that awareness or call the police, 911, as the case may be. Smart fridges can lead to a more healthy lifestyle, and why it is so is because they can automatically order fresh food from supermarkets, right? Using, of course, the internet connection, and that helps you to prevent a kind of food waste. Disadvantages, on the other hand, talks about that it can lead to an unhealthy lifestyle, right? Because of lack of exercise. You're all at home controlling devices. That makes you so relaxed, and that makes you lose fitness, okay? And it tends to make people rather lazy, because things you would have done manually, you just do it with a click of a button, and there is that over dependency on that device, okay? And there is a potential to lose a form of household skills. The skills are being lost, okay? Because what you would have learned is now what the computers or these microcontrol devices are doing for you, okay? And there is a risk of cyber security threat. That simply means that your devices can be hacked and it can be used for harm. For example, the heaters could be excessive, it could be on without you knowing. So many things can just go wrong in the house, okay? Your cooker can be on, and that can cause a lot of disaster at home, okay? Question 12, explain, they said 12 talks about explain why the RFID technology is used for reading data from passport. Now, your radio frequency identification is important because you have a passport, and one of the things that the RFID does is there are certain informations on the passport that the RFID chip is going to take out. Talking about your name, passport number, date of birth, place of birth, nationality, and expiring date, issuer date, and the likes of that. Okay, and there is a process in which this radio frequency identification goes through in scanning your passport. Remember, your passport is this ID chip that is placed on it is the passive, okay, our radio frequency, and we have the active. So it doesn't make you of any power source. It's just the chip that is now placed on it. Just the chip that is now placed on it. Okay. So the chip is the process in which it goes on is that the chip is presented near the computer, right, with a radio frequency scanner, right, which is your RFID, is presented with it, and now the scanning antenna puts on the radio frequency signal in a relatively short range, right? It provides a means of communicating with the transponder or the RFID tags, okay? Now, the scanning device provides that energy so that the chip can now broadcast informations in there for the computer to read, okay? That is just the process it carries out to read the chip on the passport, okay? That's just, remember, like I said, it's passive, okay? Once it's presented with the computer, the scanning antenna puts in that radio frequency. There's a means of communication with the transponder, which is the RFID tag, which is your transponder, which communicates with it, and of course the scanning device provides energy so that it can actually broadcast and your informations are shown on the system. Now, to go back to our question, I said explain why the RFID technology is used for reading data from passport. Why is it used? One, it is more secured than a traditional passport, as biometric measurement data is difficult to forge. Okay, it's not like we're looking at it anymore. The FID will point if it's forged or not, right? Counterfeit can easily be identified. Okay, then it is more rapid flow at security checkpoint. It's easier to check. It doesn't waste time. The queue is no longer elongated anymore because the FID just, the more it points on the chip, it scans it immediately. It tells if that passport is authentic, it's there in the database or not, and the next person. So it's actually very, very fast. Okay. So question 13, which is the second to last. They say explain why the magnetic ink is used rather than barcodes on the check. Now, let's, for example, to answer this question, let's create an example. Like a bank has trade replacement of magnetic ink character recognition, which is the same thing, for the details at the bottom of the check with barcode. So there has been a replacement with that with a barcode. Okay. Now they said, why is it used? It is used because the data on the magnetic ink character recognition is human readable, so it's easier to check the data. So it's just reading the characters and it's very, very fast than barcodes. Okay. Two, cannot be read by the magnetic ink character recognition if the check is illegally photocopied. So if it's illegally photocopied, it is not clear enough and it shows that this check was photocopied. Okay. Two, and the final one, three rather, is higher security than the barcodes. Okay, that's just what it is. Now for the final question is, a student exam answers sheet consists of boxes which the student shades in to indicate their choice of answer. They said describe the drawbacks of using the OMR, talking about the optical mark recognition. Now, how to answer this? The first thing is a student exam answer sheet. So let's look at certain informations, right, that are pre-printed on the answer sheet. What are the information the optical mark recognition is going to note? The student ID number, the date of birth, student name, instruction on how to complete the form, question number, center number, candidate number, center number, center name. Okay. How the optical mark recognition process the details from the form is this. Okay. One, we have dedicated scanner devices, right? Shines a beam of light. There's a beam of light that shines onto the form. The light is reflected back to the sensor. Okay. And the marks reflect less, so sensors is used to identify positions of marks. Computer will compare it with the correct answers positions, and then it will be graded. Okay, now to answer our question here, they said describe the drawbacks of using your optical mark recognition. Well, if the marks don't fill the space correctly, it may not be read correctly or overfill the space, and that can actually be a problem. You might not actually get the mark. That's what I'm trying to say. If the marks are not in dark enough pencil, that's why it's always recommended to use HB pencil, so that the optical mark recognition can be able to recognize your answers. Okay, then it may not be read correctly. If it's more than one shape shaded, like you're shading more than one, that makes that particular answer invalid. It's only suitable for recording one out of selected answers, and it doesn't give room for text input. You have to use prepared form, which of course may be expensive, and of course examination consists of mainly multiple choice questions. So changing the nature of that question makes it difficult because of this. So thank you very much, and I hope you go through the part 1, the part 2, and this is the part 3, and all the best in your terminal examination. Thank you very much, and please subscribe to this channel and have a good time.